Hey, how you doing? I want to welcome you to the Self-Consciousness Podcast. I am your host, Jennifer Way, intuitive consultant, and I'm so happy that you are here. It means a lot to me. Before I get into today's episode, I just want to tell you a little something. These are a couple of thoughts I've been having lately. I'm seeing a lot of faux New Age healers, and I'm seeing a lot of sound baths. And I feel like it's a little weird that so many people are culturally appropriating spiritual practices. And a lot of these people doing that are influencers. How did we get here? I really just want to tell you that for me, spirituality is personal. It's not business. Business is business. Spirituality is not business. I'm just really tired of seeing so many unhealed... I'm going to go there. I'm really just getting tired of seeing so many unhealed people preaching New Age woo-woo for trend who might not really have the best intention. It feels dangerous to me. So this is my warning, my rant. People are hurting right now. I'm hurting, you're hurting, we're all hurting. Woo! But when this is the case, people need support. We don't need trendy quick fixes. We need understanding. We need honesty. And we need bravery to really reach the depths of our souls to find the best way forward. It's really scary to go under the skin. And you really need someone who has been there and found a way through. Someone who has your interests at heart. You need someone who has empathy for humanity and will really stop at nothing to see you through your lowest lows and hold you as you find yourself again. Working with me is different. I see your divinity. We all need that reminder. We all need that reflection. So let's talk. You got nothing to lose. I do encourage you to go to jenniferway.com now to book your complimentary 20-minute Connect session. Let me show you what it feels like to be seen and heard. Our work together will bring you into your power. So let's get that light turned on. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about an easy way to shift your consciousness. We all have our own personal keys or codes that serve as shortcuts towards understanding our patterns and getting us to grow past our unhealed parts. It's important to understand our patterns and the stories behind them apart from the world around us. What we believe about ourselves and how we think is the main driver behind our actions. Behind what we put out there, what we offer, what we make. How can we be more responsible for this? And how can we be more effective at cultivating our own growth and healing? I'm inviting you to come on in and make yourself at home because I'm so happy that you're here. Our psychology and our history has shaped us, how we think, what we feel to be true. Otherwise, this is otherwise referred to as belief systems, but I'm at this point where I start to go blank, my eyes cross whenever I hear the following terms. Change your belief systems. Release what no longer serves you. Those terms are not effective for me anymore. They don't motivate me. They don't get me there. They don't resonate with me anymore. So this episode is really an attempt to find a way to get in there and find what actually motivates you. You hear athletes and business people talk about mindset, right? How it's all in the attitude. And we're practically indoctrinated with mind over matter, for better or for worse. Our minds are so incredibly powerful and really function as our navigation and sensory system. It's like your steering wheel, your diagnostic system. It leads your nervous system. Meditation or mindfulness is about mastering your mind, mastering your thought process, mastering your experience of life in this body. When we talk about mental health and trauma, and we call out people for making excuses about ill health when we say something is psychosomatic. It's all in your head. Well, yeah, it is all in your head. And this is our key to understanding ourselves. The term psychosomatic for me holds this meaning, this implied meaning that the person experiencing psychosomatic symptoms made themselves crazy and it now affects their body, and they experience a physical ailment. It's usually discussed with doubt or an implication that the person is just neurotic. But the term psychosomatic actually also means, and was originally used to describe the relationship between the body and the mind. And it comes from the merging of two Greek words, psyche for the mind and somatikos for the body. That I like. That I wish to reclaim and re-emphasize. Because I always felt there was some inherent misogyny to this idea of everything just being in your head. It reminds me of hysterical women. And it's funny because we're so mind driven in our society, and then we fault people for being in their head too much. Like I always say when people say I'm overthinking, would you prefer I underthink? In getting to know oneself spiritually, there is always a danger of bypassing. We call it spiritual bypassing. It's a popular term that's thrown around these days. With a lot of mindset practices, there can be this aspect of bulldozing one's natural feelings or emotions, forcing ourselves to be positive or to have a new mindset. And I just don't think that's helpful for people. What we need is a real path. We need a map to understanding. A map. Our brains need a map. And in the meantime, we might lie to ourselves to avoid feeling the deeper stuff. We might trick ourselves into feeling better. We might convince ourselves that we were right. Here's where I feel like context is really important. A lot of times we're doing these things, these adapted behaviors, because it is too difficult to feel the thing. It is too difficult to accept the reality or the truth. And I don't think that that's something that we have to punish ourselves for. I think that we have to get a new kind of perspective on this. And maybe bypassing isn't all that bad as long as we are aware that we are doing it and commit to ourselves to understand what we are actually bypassing, kind of putting a pin in it and coming back to it when we're ready. But we need training wheels. We need methods that work for us individually. We all have our own perspective and our own triggers that are specific to us. And the more we understand them, the more we can use them as tools for our own healing. When we are discouraged from bypassing or made to feel like we're taking an easy way out, I think of this as internalized capitalistic hyperproductivity. We forget that we actually have all the answers and insight and tricks that we would ever need. We allow ourselves to be influenced by someone telling us the right way. And now, with the oversaturation of spiritual jargon, this idea of spiritual bypassing is, it's a way of hiding behind spirituality or spiritual practices. And, it's basically spoken about that it prevents people from acknowledging what they're actually feeling and distances them from both themselves and others. So avoiding feelings and things like that. Okay, yeah. Coping mechanisms. Okay, yeah, trauma. I mean, I feel like now people are taking it to the opposite end of the spectrum where they're like so anxious about not spiritually bypassing. And I feel like that's almost just as destructive. There is a right way for you that will be different from the right way for another. So on our own personal spiritual path, between you and you, between me, myself, and I might need a hall pass or two, a permission slip, because I know myself. And I tend to veer into self-punishment or dismissal more often than not. The hullabaloo about spiritual, yes, I said hullabaloo. We need to use that more. The hullabaloo about spiritual bypassing seems like it came from this understanding that we lie to ourselves all the time. But I'm here to argue that we have had to in order to conform. I'm not saying we should ignore the negativity in our lives and that we shouldn't examine it on a deeper level. That's like not what I'm saying at all. I love to dig in there. I go right to the bottom. But man, we have to survive. You need to feel comfortable using whatever is available to you to live and grow and heal in that moment. Forcing a mindset of productivity and consistency and powering through is the biggest bypass of them all, yet it is encouraged. So be careful with all of the messaging out there about what you should be paying attention to and what you should be focusing on, because that messaging is coming from someone else who probably wants you to focus on them. If you need to float into a new mindset through a temporary acknowledged bypass, then so be it. As long as you are honest with yourself, create that permission slip to get through the really difficult times in your life. Be fair to yourself. See yourself. Zoom out and see what you're going through. It makes sense given your history, which you are an expert in. If you're losing traction, or you feel like you're drowning, or you don't know anymore if you're lying to yourself or twisting the truth to suit your needs, first of all, allow it. Forgive yourself for needing to do this. That's really the most important thing. It's not sexy, but it's true. The world likes to punish you enough. You don't need to add to it. You need choices. You need to know that if you are pretending in any areas of your life, the first step is realizing it. Then you can free yourself. But if you're not seeing it yet, that is okay. Sometimes we don't take the hints from the universe. We're human. This life shit is hard. So if we can talk ourselves into things or lie to ourselves, can you imagine how powerful it could be to talk ourselves into healing? Any good psychic medium will tell you that imagination is the entry point to intuition and unlocking your psychic powers. So pretending, imagining, these are extremely powerful and useful tools in meditation or when visualizing your journeys. Imagination is just so much more than what we give it credit for. It's not really given its due for the kind of psychic connection that can be developed from it, or the way that it sort of ushers in a real understanding of how you're receiving information. If we can imagine something to be true in a way that gets us to that place of feeling it, then that is your tool. So it's using the mind and the thought to get into the place of feeling. And that's where intention comes in. That's where your magic comes in. That's where the power really comes in. You're combining the mind with the heart. So It's really a matter of just like whatever gets you there. Just like there isn't one way to orgasm, there isn't one way to tap into your mind's power. So if you think about it, what do you think are your keys? Like, what are your codes? What are those little boosts you can give yourself in order to move through a difficult time? It's so important to find what that is for yourself when learning a new practice. What helps you get there, get to the feeling? It's almost kind of like, I guess if you're an actor, what gets the actor into that state of an emotion? Now, think about that saying that we all know when you have to give a speech or when you have stage fright, look out at the audience and imagine that everyone's in their underwear. So that's a perfect example. How can you psych yourself out in a way that benefits you? How can you talk to your own mind and hear it out first? So what are some examples of these shortcuts that I'm talking about? Let's say I know that I need better boundaries with my family, but they make me feel like crap about it. And how do I get through this dynamic while staying in my power? Well, maybe right now in this situation, I need to imagine them as toddlers who can't take care of themselves. Is it a perception of mine that they can't take care of themselves, or is it the reality? It actually doesn't matter because it's what I am experiencing. So I make it important to myself to release guilt. This becomes a priority of mine, to be in a more neutral and loving state. So in order to do this, I can give myself this particular key, so to speak, in order to allow a better centering of my energy and a better management of my energy through this sort of tiny shift. One could say that you're being unfair to them or being selfish, but none of that matters. I'm telling you right now, none of that matters. What you're doing is enabling yourself to feel less guilt, less anger, and less resentment. And you're doing this by reminding yourself that whether you are justified in privately calling them babies or not, you can cushion this new pattern that is so important to your self-care. You can allow that energy shifts and then their behavior might shift alongside yours, because now you're regarding them almost with a bit of empathy, right? As opposed to this sort of feeling guilt, right? So this is just one way you can start getting a better understanding of what gets you motivated, even if it might seem like bullshit to some people. You gotta do you, because who else you gonna do? So your spiritual path involves reconnecting yourself. In most cases, this involves reconnecting your mind with your heart. This involves pulling away those old belief systems. See, it doesn't resonate anymore, right? Pulling away, digging into and understanding your psychology, understanding how you arrived at your patterns, understanding and taking into consideration what your history is, taking into consideration what your biography is. Because nobody else understands it the way you do. Nobody on this planet. And listen, I think understanding what the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, I'm of course referring to that book. If you don't know it, it's called Mindset. And learning about spiritual bypassing, if that helps you become more aware of how your mind might work or what you might be avoiding, that's great too. Listen, anything that works for you works. That's the point. My point is, why don't we just play with psyching ourselves out a little? I mean, that's our right to do. As long as we are grounded in it, as long as we are aware of what we are doing. I want to avoid making anyone feel guilty because they might be relying on these behaviors that are seemingly, really bad. But we can't keep shitting on this kind of stuff because this is what we are inclined to do. And the point is, we have to learn why we are inclined to do it. That's more important than the behavior itself. We have such a shallow view of how to help ourselves in our current space and time. Our society really just wants you to pummel your feelings and really just push them aside, flush them down, not consider them. Because they're worried about, emotions taking over. Worried about emotions taking over, yet war is perfectly fine. Anger is a very big emotion. I mean, you don't go to war because you're feeling love. So, it's like, it makes sense to them when they say it. Again, they're playing the same game, telling themselves that something is okay when it might actually not be. Now, we really want to emphasize personal responsibility. If you are in a space where you're hurting somebody, you have to consider that, and you have to really open up to the fact that there is pain inside of you. And if you are pushing that outward, then there's something that you have to address on the inside. And that is a matter of recognition and taking that personal responsibility, taking the extra step to not flood or shit all over other people. So this is really about personally influencing your own mind by taking into account your entirety, taking into account your humanity, taking into account the situation, the context, all of those things. We have so many messages around us that are pushing us to feel one way or another. And it's just not good for us anymore. Especially if you're easily influenced or your focus is, if it's difficult for you to focus. So this is a way to take your power back. This is a way to say, you know what? I know I'm spiritual bypassing. So the fuck what? Why not? If you're not hurting anybody except yourself, then that's up to you. That's your business, okay? It's no one else's business if you're spiritually bypassing. So what are those psychosomatic keys for you? And how can you use them to your advantage? It all comes down to awareness. Being aware of what you are doing, being aware of what you're thinking, being aware of what you're feeling. And being aware of what you'd rather be doing, thinking, or feeling. So this, again, is kind of going against a lot of the advice that I've seen, read, and heard out there. But I'm offering it to you because I haven't heard anyone else offer it. And I feel, and I know, that it's valid. I also want to encourage you to be spiritually independent. It's really hard right now, especially when you are looking for answers, when you are exploring modalities, when you are starting to heal yourself, and when you're just curious. It's more important than ever to really listen to your own mind, to your own heart, and to your own body. Now, when you're engaging with spiritual practices or teachers, make sure that that's the foundation of what's being taught. Just remember, you are awesome. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the Self-Consciousness Podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And don't forget to go to jenniferway.com because you can sign up to receive my complimentary guidebook entitled Who the Fuck Am I? Because of course you need another fucking guidebook. But you're going to find tools, tips, worksheets, and guides to really help you start getting to know your true self and to help you navigate all the overwhelming New Age spiritual bullshit. Thank you so much again. I will talk to you next week. Have a wonderful week.